Welcome to the 59th Leadership Leaves Lecture by Amita Karadkhedkar. And like I've written in the chat box, it's a very, very interesting topic, very inclusive. In fact, those of you are pursuing or in the know of DEI, that is diversity, equity, and inclusiveness. I think this is one of the short-bust topics, I would say. And then we have Amita Karadkhedkar, like I said, who will be delivering this wonderful and very insightful lecture for us. And I'm sure, maybe some of you must have seen her profile, but otherwise, also I put her, LinkedIn profile in the chat box as well. And let me have the pleasure of introducing her formally for this, August audience. After her, engineering, Bachelor of Engineering, Computer Science, right. She started working for HSBC North America as associate consultant, where she worked for 3 years and 4 months in the bank, in the company. And then after that, she worked with a Jewish bank in London as a senior software engineer for 1 year and 4 months. After which she was with Barclays for 7 years and 8 months. She started as a techno-functional quality lead, and then went on to become assistant vice president during January 2017 and February 2019. And since then, that is from 2019 onwards, she has been with Citibank, firstly as vice president, personal banking and wealth management, and APAC lead of Testing Center of Excellence between March 2019 and January 2023. And this year's, that is from January 2023 onwards, she's senior vice president at Citibank. And currently, like I said, apart from being the senior vice president, right, she's also Citi Global Wealth Technology, and she's a co-chair of Citi India Pride Network. And she's also one of the most sought after TEDx public speaker. And most importantly, she's a purpose and kindness, and she touches lots of lives with her thought leadership. And like I said, she's going to be talking to us, and very, very interesting and very insightful. I would say nothing less than inclusive, if I may say, this word, or inclusive topic on rainbow capitalism. Right. And let's have the pleasure of welcoming her for our 59th Leadership Leaves lecture. Over to you, Amita.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nagendra, for this warm introduction and for this warm welcome. Hi, all. A very good evening to all of you. Before we get on with the session, a quick disclaimer. I am kind of delivering this session, this advocacy engagement in my personal capacity. I'm not representing my organization. So the views that I'll express, the thoughts that I'll be presenting in front of you will be my own and might not resonate with that of my organization. All right. So yeah, that being said, yes, presently I work with Citi. I'm senior vice president with the technology arm for private banking and wealth management. That's what I do. That's what, my primary job is. But along with that, I am also co-chair of Citi India Pride Network, which primarily works towards, strengthening the workplace for the LGBTI plus colleagues. Then in my personal capacity, I'm also a diversity, equity, and inclusion advocate, as Dr. Nagendra also mentioned. The genesis of this is my life journey. So I have gone through a journey of gender transition whilst working for my erstwhile organization. I'll talk about it, then I'll come to Rainbow Capitalism. And as I understand the format of the session, let's make this session very interactive. I'm expecting a lot of questions from you all. And, I am like kind of no judgment, no advice, ally or ear that you all can have. So feel free to ask any question that you have in your mind. I'll be more than happy to take up these questions and help you kind of educate and understand more about the LGBTI plus community. Okay. So coming back to my journey. This journey of gender transition, of course, didn't happen overnight. The realization didn't happen overnight. It was a process. I mean, I come from a very small town. So as all of you can understand, growing up, I was like any other child. But my surrounding, people around me, made me feel different. They imposed upon me a fallacy. And of course, the constant act of impersonating someone who I was not was extremely, extremely suffocating. And yes, I was different, and being different automatically singled me out. Um, I was butt of all sorts of jokes and mockery and all that. That's how the childhood was very lonely and difficult. Where I found solace was in academia. I was extremely, extremely good in studies, and anything around studies. It could be extempore, debating competitions, coloring competitions, and all that. And that, in a way, helped me channelize my energy positively, even though there was a lot of negativity around me. And that's how then I completed engineering also. Again, college days were also extremely lonely, but supportive parents who never gender policed me helped me focus on studies. Then I came to Pune, got selected as a fresher through off-campus drive, and then once you get into the corporate, race, of course, you want to excel, you want to skill augment, you want to step up the corporate ladder, and that's how it was working up until it reached a point where I sensed there is a dead end. There is nothing now. I couldn't see anything beyond. It was like somebody put me in a dark box without any window, any door, or any ray of light. It was extremely, extremely suffocating. And that's where then I realized that I need to be the architect of my own self. I need to figure out answers. What's going on with me? Why do I feel different? Why do I can't fit in? And that's where then I started exploring information. I started getting into counseling sessions, met a couple of psychiatrists, discussed with visible role models. Growing up, of course, the only reference point that I had was, the eunuchs from the Hijra community begging at the signals. And just like you all, I was also told these people do not belong to the society. They are like aliens, some demons, and we should keep away from them. And that's the only reference point I had growing up. And that's where then I knew that I'm different, but I did not know the language. And whatever reference points I had, those were extremely, extremely non-acceptable according to the society. And then that's how then when I decided to explore information, it put me on a voyage of self-discovery. And eventually I realized there is a medically recognized term for it. So it's not like, something is wrong with me, or, I am an alien, or I don't belong to this planet. I deserve to die. No, nothing like that. It's a medically recognized term called gender dysphoria. Gender dysphoria is something where your biological sex is not aligned with your psychological gender. So quickly, just, from the education perspective, so if you look at the LGBTI plus umbrella, it revolves majorly around two factors. One is sexual orientation and one is gender identity. These are two different terms. More often than not, we confuse them because even today, we are in 2023, still in our education system. None of this is being taught. None of this is being discussed. This is still considered to be a taboo. That's why then a lot of us don't even know. So sexual orientation is basically your emotional, physical, romantic attraction towards the other person. In majority cases, a man is attracted towards a woman. That's how the man is heterosexual. A woman is attracted towards a man. That's how she is a heterosexual woman. But in certain cases, a man is attracted towards another man. They are called gays or homosexuals. Similarly, women are attracted towards women. They are called lesbians or even homosexuals. This is all about sexual orientation. And then there comes gender identity. Gender identity is your innate feeling of your own self when it comes to your gender. And that's how then, when it comes to my journey, I was, of course, assigned male at birth. Because even today, how we work as a society is we look at what's there between the legs of a baby, and then we decide the gender of the baby. And that's how I was assigned male at birth. But when I, kind of got the information, what is going on with me, I understood that there is this gender incongruence. I don't identify with the gender that has been assigned to me at birth. And then what's next now? Are there any solutions to it? Now I understood the problem statements, as in this is what the situation is. Is there any such solution to it? So yes, there is a solution of gender transition, but it's not a rule. Not everybody want to or can go through the journey of gender transition. And I decided to go through the gender transition to be the woman I always wanted to be. So, of course, it has got phases, medical, social, legal. So, medical is, various surgical interventions. The peak of that is considered to be gender affirmation surgery. I decided to go through it because I wanted to be the woman physically as well. Legal transition, getting your documents updated. Social transition, presenting yourself with the gender that you identify with. All that I did whilst working for my erstwhile organization. And of course, something like this was happening for the first time in Indian context for my erstwhile organization. And yeah, there were, of course, a lot of fears. Will I lose my employment? And, all those things were in my mind before embarking upon this journey. But thankfully, I was working for an inclusive organization who showed the intent to hold my hand and walk along with me in the journey of gender transition. But then, yes, my journey of gender transition helped me understand, the various problems that are still in the society, as I mentioned, education sector, or even when it comes to the wider societal sector. And that also helped me understand the new problem, which is rainbow capitalism. So, what is rainbow capitalism? So, now June will be a Pride month. I'm sure all of you will suddenly see a tsunami of rainbow color on LinkedIn, for example, on various social media handles. So organizations will have their logos in rainbow colors. There will be various posts, proud ally pictures, pride marches and all. So this is what it is. I'm not saying it's not required, but this is just first step when we talk about inclusion or acceptance for the LGBTI plus community. And this is where the thought process is getting restrained. So because competitive brands are portraying their logos in rainbow color, I want to portray my organization's logo in rainbow color. That's it. In June month, I want to put across posts on social media that, proud ally and all those quotes and all, and nothing beyond that. This is what rainbow capitalism is. And that's where I want to also talk about possible measures by which organizations can rise above rainbow capitalism. As I mentioned, these conversations are, of course, required. It's a very, very welcoming change in the society, in the corporate sector. Because when I started off my professional journey, nothing of that sort was existent. LGBTI plus, the word itself was not existent in the corporate sector. Cut to today, the conversations are happening. Of course, it makes me happy. And so many other individuals from the LGBTI plus community, when they see rainbow flags in June month, for example, on LinkedIn or various social media handles, we feel extremely happy when organizations are painting their buildings in rainbow colors. But at the same time, organizations need to align themselves with the wider societal reforms. Some of you already might be knowing that 2018, the draconian rule, Section 377, has been run down in India. So up until then, Section 377, in a way, criminalized homosexuality in India. So, if you're a homosexual, you're a criminal. That's how it was. And there were a lot of misunderstandings also. That law doesn't exist anymore. That means now society has created a setup wherein people can come out when it comes to their sexual orientation. Corporate world, any employment sector is a reflection of the societal reforms. That means people will want to come out at the workplaces too, as far as their sexual orientation is concerned, because Section 377 is not there. Our organization is supportive if individuals decide to come out at the workplace. Okay. Similarly, in 2014, third gender is a legally recognized gender in India. So when we look at the trans persons umbrella, it's a very broader term. And, the most visible community in India is the Hijra community. And all of these individuals identify themselves as third gender. Neither they identify themselves as male nor as female. And that's where it was important, because this custom, this pseudo-family system has been part of our Indian cultures for centuries. So it was important that we give them recognition legally. And that's how then in 2014, third gender is a legally recognized gender in India. What needs to happen next? The overall framework now needs to be accepting and recognizing of this gender in the society. Employment sector is no less. Corporate sector is, part of, again, this reform. And that's where now corporates needs to understand and figure out ways how can they hire these individuals who identify themselves as third gender. you know Usually, I mean, some of you might have experience already. Let's say, you go through interviews and then you're asked to submit certain documents. There are certain forms which need to filled in, and there is a column as, or a drop down gender. It has only two values in the drop down, male and female. So imagine if somebody who identifies themselves as third gender, how will they submit these documents? So you are completely disregarding that individuals legally recognized gender. And that's where organizations need to identify, are there any gaps in their framework, in their setup, and how can they bridge those? Similarly, then the overall policies and framework of the organization. So as I said, now we live in times where people are ready to talk about their identities. If you look at Facebook itself has got so many gender identities which you can select from the drop down. So there can be gays, there can be lesbians when it comes to sexual orientation. Similarly, when it comes to gender identity, there will be third gender. There will be people who are gender fluid. There'll be people who are gender non-binary. There will be people who do not identify with any gender. And we live in times where people want to talk about it. They want to come out of these aspects publicly. So how are you going to support them? That's where your policies should be gender agnostic. Your culture should be gender agnostic. The daily conversations that are happening at the workplace should be gender agnostic, so that we do not discount any individuals. Now, when we roll out benefits at the workplace to the cisgender heterosexual population, which is the majority population at the workplace, what benefits are we rolling out to the LGBTI plus community at the workplace? And this cannot be based on VOEs, voice of employees, because again, majoritarian rule works. When we carry out VOE surveys, who are going to be the people who will be voting in maximum numbers? Cisgender heterosexual people, because that's how the corporate sector, any employment sector, is hugely populated by these individuals. And so the outcomes of VOE will be around for cisgender heterosexual people at the workplace. You will completely disregard the other individuals, minorities such as LGBTI plus individuals at the workplace. So VOEs cannot be the basis for this. For example, let's say, gender affirmation surgery coverage at the workplace. Like I said, you want to be equal, right? You want to be an equal opportunity employer. You want to be an equal employer in terms of benefits to everybody at the workplace. So it should reflect through your policies. Now, when it comes to hiring, so it cannot be just lip service. You're having various conversations, panel discussions, in the month of Pride and all, and then done. There is love. This is required. Conversations need to happen. But at the same time, organizations need to put their money where their mouth is. Lip service should turn into action. And one of that action is hiring LGBTI plus talent. So, I'll tell you my experienced situation. So the moment I put a open job position, first 100 resumes, profiles that will hit my inbox will be cisgender heterosexual men. Because that's the society we live in. And I'm not saying anybody is at fault. That's how we have been living in patriarchal, misogynistic society. And that's where, up until I take that extra step, up until I go that extra mile, I will not be able to hire diverse talent. I'll not be able to reach out the diverse talent. Again, I'm not talking about reservation at this stage. I'm talking about representation, and not at the cost of meritocracy. So that's where, if you look at today, there are various suppliers available in the market who have repositories of competent LGBTI plus profiles. So organizations need to tie up with them. Organizations need to educate their hiring managers that, see if you can get your skills mapping with this supplier, and see if you can hire somebody from the LGBTI plus community. This is where I'll also mention Sheryl Sandberg's example, from her book. Some of you might be able to relate with it because some of you might have read it already, a mainstream book. So, she went to a conference and She wanted to use the restroom. And that's where she asked, where is the women ladies restroom? And that's where the men in the conference realized there is no restroom for women in that setup. And the reason was no woman was ever part of that conversation till that date. That's why they never felt to have that facility in that setup. That's how representation leads to changes from the equality perspective. So when you have LGBTI plus individuals working across you, working with you, that will help you understand what are the gaps in your policies, in your frameworks, in your culture, in your overall setup, and how can you bridge those gaps. That's why representation is extremely important. Apart from this, organizations need to be enablers. So we are not just talking about hiring. After hiring, it's also about thriving. Everybody comes with aspirations, right? So today, if you hire somebody from the LGBTI plus community, of course, that individual want to grow in their careers, right? They want to thrive. How can you create a supportive environment for that individual to thrive? How can you be the enabler for that individual's career progression now onwards? So again, I'll give you a visible example so that maybe you will be able to relate what I'm trying to tell you. And again, this was very much discussed in social media platforms. So Kochi Metro. Kochi Metro carried out an amazing initiative of hiring transgender women from the Hijra community, you know, um, I think for the ticketing job in the metros. Amazing. It was celebrated, very much required move. But within the span of 3 months, all of these women left. Why did they leave? Because a lot of them could not even find the accommodation to live. A lot of them were subjected to hostility, to constant discrimination, alienation, and that became extremely suffocating for them to survive in that setup. And that's where they preferred quitting than continuing. That's where when organizations also hire LGBTI plus individuals, they also need to think, how can they be supportive? So for example, if organizations are hiring these trans women from the Hijra community, they will be working on the floor. You need to create that supportive setup for these individuals. They will go through these, challenges when it comes to accommodation. Let me tell you a couple of stats also. Even today, 2023, 64% of Indians, imagine 64% of Indians believe homosexuality can never be justified. We have so many visible babas and whatnot, and influential leaders openly talking about homophobia. That's what leads to action. That's why 64% Indians believe homosexuality cannot be justified. 41% Indians stated in a survey carried out that they will not prefer a homosexual neighbor. Forget about tenant in their own premises. They are not even ready to have a homosexual neighbor. And not even talking about transgender women. The situation is extremely horrible when it comes to trans persons. They do not find accommodation. They are constantly subjected to hostility, discrimination, alienation. I come from a certain privilege. Maybe I am a very few, minuscule segment within the, let's say, transgender umbrella. I have supportive family. But that's not the case with so many trans women I know. They are constantly alienated. They struggle to find an accommodation. Imagine. And these privileges, maybe some of you might not even recognize, because some of you have never faced these challenges in your life just because you are different. And that's where if organizations also talk about hiring, thriving, they also need to be enablers for these individuals. Okay. Now, some of you might think also, as we are talking about this, why all this needs to be done? Let's just continue with the status quo. Why do we need to talk about diversity? Why do we need to, hire diverse talent? So that's where maybe, I'll recommend you all to read a book. Again, a very mainstream book. Okay. It's called Invisible Women, Exposing Data Bias in a World Designed for Men by Caroline Perez. This book will help you understand how technology is blind when it comes to inclusion. And then unless we invest conscious efforts, the solutions that will roll out will be discounting so many people from the society. For example, when the car safety, airbags were launched initially, it failed to protect petite, conventionally womanly bodies. Why? Because in the product life cycle, only broad men were leveraged for testing. That's how the solution was only could protect the broad bodies, and it completely discounted petite bodies. Even the voice recognition system failed to recognize, high-pitched conventionally womanly voices. Why? Because only men, cisgender, heterosexual men were leveraged in the product life cycle. They discounted every other individual. Face recognition system branded black people as gorillas because only white people were leveraged during the product life cycle. Testing was not carried out on any other diversity. So the solution branded black people as gorillas. So many examples, like for example, Google Maps. I'm sure all of you are using Google Maps. When initially Google Maps were launched, it has only an option of fastest route. So as a woman, if I want to use Google Maps after, let's say, 10 p.m., speed is not my concern. My concern is security. But Google Maps completely discounted me and so many other women. Why? Maybe because cisgender, privileged, heterosexual men were, involved in the product life cycle who are crazy for speed. They only thought about speed. That's why diversity is important in your product life cycles, because that's how you bring diverse views. That's how your solutions are robust. That's how your solutions are holistic to all the sections of the society. And as I always say, that's how your solutions are a reflection of the society. Even in India, if you look at today, the reforms that I've mentioned, you have visible out and proud individuals who are from the LGBTI plus community. And according, William Institute's survey, they are estimating 3.8% of Indian population is from the LGBTI plus community, which means 45.4 million people are, out, I'm talking about, not even closeted ones, are from the LGBTI plus community. That's the pink currency we are talking about. These are extremely, extremely creative, talented individuals which can constitute towards our GDP, towards our innovation, towards our transformation journeys. And that's where, if we want to be inclusive, if we want our solutions to be reflection of these individuals, we have to leverage diversity in the product life cycles. Okay. Now, I have briefly touched based upon certain challenges faced on the LGBTI plus community, which some of you might not be aware. An extension of that, I'll also touch base upon. So, I don't know how many of you have gone through abandonment by your own family. That's the biggest challenge LGBTI plus individuals go through. The moment they decide to come out, in most of the cases, they are abandoned. They are not accepted by their own families. Imagine how lonely that life is. Because for all of us, our families matter a lot. Our families become that bouncing back mechanism. We can always fall back on them for support, and that's how then we can come back with a new invigorated vigor. But for the LGBTI plus individuals, the family itself doesn't exist. How difficult that is, just think for a while. And then on a daily basis, there is this unequal environment which they are subjected to. So even you look at, corporate places from the infrastructure perspective, individual who is identifying as third gender or gender non-binary, they cannot use a restroom for men. They cannot use a restroom for women, because I'm sure the colleagues itself will raise concerns. I don't feel safe when this person is entering the washroom. That means they will need a washroom which is gender inclusive, which is, let's say, gender agnostic. That's how and imagine, this is like a basic need we are talking about. We are not talking about privileged, fancy needs. Using a washroom is a basic need of any colleague at the workplace. How can you sit for, let's say, 8 hours at the workplace without using the washroom? Imagine what these individuals must have been going through because the infrastructure is not supportive. Apart from that, when I said policies are not inclusive, imagine you getting constantly discounted at the workplace. Imagine you are dating, you're gay and you're dating a man, but you can't talk about it at the workplace because everybody will make fun of you. And cut to the cisgender heterosexual population proudly talk about their boyfriends, their girlfriends, proudly celebrate their engagements, wedding at the workplace, get sweets. Imagine the emails that you get. Sweets at my desk, got engaged, congratulatory message. I'm blessed with a baby. Pregnant women parading their baby bumps at the workplace, getting benefits, 6 months of maternity leave. Cut to LGBTI plus community can't even talk about their boyfriends and girlfriends at the workplace because they'll subject it to mockery. It will not be accepted. Just imagine for a while what unequal situation we are talking about here. And then disclosure dilemma. So, so after my transition, I always had this option of, like just not talking about it because legally I am a female now. Legally on all my documents, I am a female. So that's how my new life begins. So let's not talk about it. But then that's where I sat with my parents and we consciously made that decision that because I had certain visible role models, that became the hope for me to survive, to live. When I was in the darkest moments of my life, when I was suicidal, these visible role models became my hope, became the ray of my life, because of which I am alive today. So it's my responsibility. I give it back to the society. I become that visible role model so that people can understand, yes, this exists. And I also have the basic right to live and thrive. That's why I decided to talk about my journey, my gender transition, the process. And in a way, I'm also creating this platform for anybody to have this healthy conversation with me. Whatever confusions you have, whatever misunderstandings you have, I am in a way creating this platform, this channel for you all to, have this healthy conversation with me. That's where the purpose of my life lies. And any leadership with purpose, I think, is far more effective than a leadership without any purpose. Because I think leadership with a purpose is anchored. You know what you're doing. You know how you can influence people. You know how you can bring in the behavioral changes for individuals and the wider societal reforms. And I think whatever minuscule way possible for me, that's what I'm trying to do. So with that, I think I'll take a pause and maybe, we can open this platform for questions. Yeah.
Thank you, Amita. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, very interesting and must be, I think it's quite, I would say nothing less than a very big, very painful, right? I think just to hear, but I'm sure what you have said in just about in a few minutes must have been a lot of years of, the journey yourself, right? But absolutely, congratulations to you and a lot of other people like you, one of you are making a difference that way. I think while I know there are quite a few questions, but let me just ask you the first one. Now, I think it's almost about 9 years, since that decriminalization has taken place in 2013. And I know that around that time, a lot of companies have come out in support of decriminalization, right? Starting with Amul, as usual, is on top of the chart there. But I think even after 9 years, Amita, I think what we get to see is still maybe that's one is the sensitization, other one is definitely that wholehearted, welcoming of, this community. I mean, maybe sporadically you get to see, but that's where maybe, quote unquote, maybe they, like many people say, it's a lip service kind of thing. But I don't think that's going to be just enough for people to really come out of the closet and think that, they're part of the mainstream. So what else do you think? Of course, you said, a lot of initiatives that companies should take, even simple thing like having a, the in the application for, maybe in the, I think these are all the way very demonstrative ways of meaning that you really mean, the inclusivity in every sense. So from that point of view, what else? I mean, if you have to, state very specifically 3 initiatives, because like you rightly said, you have a visible role models. Now, I think it's high time that we also create that kind of visible role model from the companies, right? So therefore, once the big company takes that, the first step, I think the rest of the people will be, clamoring around it. But I think we have not seen that kind of, a very, I would say, nothing less than epoch-making kind of thing in India right now, Amita. So what would be your, 3 suggestions, for them so that they take the real thing. Because I've heard about on different technology, deaf and dumb people also, right? I remember Mindtree using us for the spastic kids, and also Miracle Couriers employing only deaf and dumb people. So all that's happening, but then in this space, I think still there's a lot of vacuum. So therefore, if I have to ask you, what would be those three specific things that you think top class companies should start initiating, so the rest of the companies will start following it up?
Sure, sure. That's a very important question. So, just to kind of correct the information. So in 2013, third gender is legally recognized gender in India. Okay. And in 2018, Section 377 was run down.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah. So now couple of things. Okay, when it comes to coming out, it's individual's choice. Let's be very clear with that. So it's not like because the organization is very supportive, the organizations will push people to come out at the workplace. That's not how it works. That's why I always say numbers cannot be the measure for the success of any ERG at the workplace, especially for the LGBTI plus individuals, because coming out involves so many complications. Right. Like I said, families. So your organization can be extremely supportive, but your family is not. And we all love our families, right? That's where in any decision, we want to be considerate about our family impact also, how they are going to react. That's where coming out is individual's choice. Whether, the organization needs to be supportive. They need to show that if you decide to come out, you will be safe. You will not be losing your employment. But then individual can decide whether they want to come out or not. Okay. Then second aspect is lot of misunderstandings are still there. And that's where I would suggest. So let's say, for example, now we have been hearing the term chat GPT. Okay. What people will do who want to know, they will go to Google, they'll enter chat GPT, try to understand what it is. They'll participate in the conversation. They'll attend a webinar, seminar, and that's how they'll understand about chat GPT. Then why not the same when we talk about LGBTI plus individuals or community? Exactly. Why this is an alien term to you? The moment you will hear LGBTI plus, you will close your ears. No, nothing. No, it doesn't exist. Why? You have been hearing this word constantly for so many years now. Why can't you just Google? Right. Why can't you just attend a session like this to understand what is LGBTI plus? Absolutely. If you know any visible role model, why can't you indulge in a healthy conversation with that person to clear out your prejudices and biases? Because again, all of us come from this same milieu where we have certain distorted reference points. And this is how we have been taught. This is what we have been told. The hijras and the traffic signals will steal your children. They are criminals. They'll steal your money. That's the reference point you have. And that's how then you will generalize the LGBTI plus community. Oh, all of them are like that. No. I cannot rent out my flat to them. No. I cannot have a neighbor like that. No. I can't have a colleague like that. No, don't talk to them. No, don't let your children play with them. They will also turn gays. They will also turn lesbians. Why these wrong prejudices and biases and misinformation you have in your minds? Absolutely. We are living in 21st century. You have access to information. If you have doubts, get those doubts cleared. And once you will rise above your misunderstandings, automatically you will be part of the inclusion journey. You will take the first step to be an ally. Okay. And that is what maybe I'll think is the first step, which is a major step for organizations. Organization is what? Organization is a set of people. Right. That's how these set of people create a culture. That's how these set of people create a framework, policies and all. And these set of people need to be allies. And allyship is a journey. So first thing is they need to rise above their biases, rise above their prejudices, rise above their misunderstandings, get yourself educated. And then, as I briefly mentioned, representation. Absolutely. When you will have representation, automatically it will lead to changes. Because individuals will come out talking about it. And that's how you don't have to invest too much efforts also in identifying the gaps. Once you have representation, that will automatically help you identify the gap and figure out solutions to bridge those gaps. Even in India, if you see today, 2013, third gender is a legally recognized gender, 2014, sorry. 2018, Section 377 run down. how many visible CXOs we have in the corporate sector who are, let's say, proudly gay. Even I am talking about the privileged section in the LGBTI plus community, which is gays, which is again privileged men, most of them. How many out and proud gay CXOs we have in India? Tell me at least one.
Right.
How many out and proud gay politicians we have in India? How many gay out and proud scientists we have in India? Even today. Forget about trans persons. So that means somewhere we are failing as a society. Somewhere we are failing as an ecosystem. That's why people are just not coming out. People are just not willing to talk about it. And that's why we have to give a seat at the table to the LGBTI plus individuals. Once you have a visible gay CXO, automatically it will influence the ecosystem. Automatically it will lead to major reforms. Once you have a visible trans person holding a position of power, it will automatically lead to very wider societal reforms. That is going to be a massive and major, kind of corrective measure that maybe, all of us need to take as an ecosystem.
Absolutely. I think I just want to ask you, I think, two related questions. One is about, I think, specifically about the HR part of it, because somewhere they need to make a beginning because HR holds the entire canvas to the culture. That's what they right. So I think a lot of times what I heard and what I've seen also, Amita, is that they conduct something called as POSH, right, in every company, right? And then they also have a test. In fact, it's part of the test in the sense that unless you clear it, it's part of one of the mandates that many companies, hold it, then therefore it's mandatory, not almost, it's a mandatory. You have to clear the test kind of thing. And of course, different companies administer this one in different ways. Sometimes they put it in the LMS and you just have to, but at the end of the day, you'll have to clear all the exam and all the questions there and ensure not even 99%, you have to get 100%. At least I've seen it happening. Now that's one part of it, which is good. But at the end of it, again, you'll have a lot of questions because the guys who get 100% there, not that they will eventually not indulge in this kind of thing. That's one debate there. But I think the larger thing that coming back to our inclusivity, Amit, is that would it be a good idea to include this also as a part of something like that? So therefore, people are sensitized from, because unless and until you're mandating, it is just like the sports being a mandate as a part of curriculum. Only then people get those children. The same way here also, I think would it be a good idea that the actually HR departments or CHROs or CPOs, as you might call them, they actually get sensitized about this inclusivity at the highest order. And then we start seeing some visible demonstration of how this inclusivity can be brought to every walk of life so that everybody is sensitized, right? Because POSH, like you rightly said, is just about, both the gender, right? That's it, nothing more than that. But then it shouldn't also be extended to this gender as well. That's one. The second one is, I think sometime back, you were talking about, almost about 44 million people who are out there, right? Who have to be serviced. And unfortunate thing is, I don't think any effort has been taken ever to understand the specific requirements. I'm sure they would have a different requirement. It can be anything. Of course, it can be professional. It can be personal as well, right? Now, that's a huge sizable market, right, for any company, right? Of course, not that we're going to have exclusive companies for that, but every company must have some angle to it. So therefore, how do you think, this every company should actually, at least all the personal care products, or let's say in professional thing also, for example, in a company, right? It can be simple like cafeteria, or it can be, like you rightly said, a washroom, or it can be any other facility that they might like, right? So therefore, what do you think any company should be doing to tap that potential? That's the second question I have, Amita.
Yeah, correct. Thank you so much for touch basing on the POSH aspect, because imagine POSH does not cover LGBTI plus individuals, and we cannot disregard this fact that again these individuals might subject to sexual violence at the workplace.
Mm-hmm.
And there is no protection guidelines for these individuals at the workplace. So that's the discrimination I'm talking about at the workplaces. Yeah. So when we have POSH Vishakha guidelines to protect women for any sexual violence at the workplace, sexual harassment at the workplace, we also need to look at men, because this is very much a reality. We also need to look at LGBTI plus individuals, because this is again a very much reality. That's the changes need to happen when it comes to sexual harassment protection at the workplace. And that's where zero tolerance for intolerance comes into picture. So organizations need to be very, very strict when it comes to any such act against LGBTI plus individuals too. And that's where exit interviews come into picture. Exit interviews cannot be just formalities, because usually that's what happens. So also, let's say somebody has spoken about this. What action are you taking? So I had a friend. Unfortunately, I lost him to cancer. And this information is very much available in the public domain. He was working for Tech Mahindra. He was an out and proud gay man. And, the DEI lead of Tech Mahindra herself was discriminating against him. She was extremely homophobic. She used to always make mockery of him being effeminate, his overall appearance, clothing at the workplace. Eventually, he left the job, but he also ensured he registered this. He takes action against her. And then again, Tech Mahindra was also very prompt on that front. They took action against her. But then other organizations also need to follow the suit, because this is very much a reality. And again, without getting into a blame game, I'll also give a little bit of empathetic approach towards this. So a lot of individuals come from the same milieu where they are taught a very boxed, understanding of things, male and female. Men are supposed to behave in a way. Women are supposed to behave in a way. Men supposed to like blue. Women supposed to like pink. Men supposed to play sports. Women supposed to cook. Men supposed to like bikes. Women supposed to like Barbie dolls. That's how they are taught. So when they see an effeminate man wearing a pink at the workplace, either they'll make fun of him, or they will just disregard his existence as a human, or maybe they'll go extreme steps of making fun of him, making his life extremely miserable at the workplace, and also questioning his competence because he is gay, effeminate. Anything like that is happening, there has to be a zero tolerance for it.
Absolutely.
Organizations need to take strict actions against such individuals who are homophobic, transphobic. Why are you homophobic and transphobic? Ask that question to yourself. What is it that is leading for your actions which are extremely transphobic? Educate yourself, right? You have an individual, like for example, let's say I'm a visible role model. And because I have transcended genders, I also fall within the transgender person's umbrella, even though legally I'm female, which is binary. That's what I wanted. But because I transcended genders, I am part of the transgender umbrella. So if you're being transphobic towards me, misgendering me, why? Why are you doing that? And initially, I'll give you a benefit of doubt. You did a mistake, understood. You're doing that again and again. Why? Why are you creating this work environment extremely toxic for me just because I have a journey? Just because, let's say, I'm different. You need to rise above your prejudices and biases. And that's why then I'll go to HR. I'll tell them, this person is constantly misgendering me. His actions, his or her, whatever, are extremely transphobic. Let me know what you will do about these individuals. And there has to be a zero tolerance for intolerance, because eventually it's, you are being so phobic for me. Imagine the mental toxicity I have to go at the workplace. And mental health challenges are extremely intense within the LGBTI plus community. So I would request the audience, just put yourself in that situation. Just imagine you're fighting with your own battles of your sexual orientation, gender identity. You're not able to understand what's going on with me. Let's say you are a man and you are attracted towards a man. You're not able to understand why. And then your family is pressurizing you to get married to a woman. And then now you don't know what to do about it. And then you come at the workplace. Everyone is making fun of you because you are effeminate. Imagine the kind of mental, torture you are going through on a daily basis. And then you come out and then your family abandons you. Imagine the loneliness. Imagine then your neighbors mistreating you. Imagine society not including you in various, societal celebrations, because they are very, very heterosexual, cisgender, heterosexual, normative celebrations. And that's the references we constantly talk about. Even though we have references in our mythology, let's say Hindu mythology, we have Shrikhandi, We have Mohini. We have so many references. But then they are God. They can do anything. But humans cannot be like that. Why? Who told you? It's your own educational gap where, again, very relatable example. We'll celebrate Durga. We'll celebrate Kali. But we'll indulge in sexual violence against women. We'll put them on pedestal. Why? What kind of a society we are building in? Same is for the LGBTI plus community. There are references in Mahabharata and Ramayana, and we are watching them day in, day out. But in reality, if something like that is happening, we disregard it. We are extremely toxic towards it. Why?
Absolutely.
That's where I think all of us need to be little pragmatic rather than being delusional and celebrating Mohini, worshipping. But in reality, when you see a Mohini being extremely toxic, why? So be logical, be realistic. And that's where I think we have so-called cultural custodians roaming around us within our society. We need to get away from that. Whatever propaganda is being run, we need to rise above the propaganda. Who gave certain individual an authority to be the cultural custodian of Hindu culture? Who gave you that authority? Is there some degree which you have obtained from some institution? Where is that institution which gave you that degree? Oh, you are the cultural custodian. Nothing of that sort exists.
Exactly.
These are individuals who are self-proclaimed cultural custodians. With their own distorted understanding, they decide this is what our culture is. And whatever their limited understanding, anything beyond that, they will instigate violence against that. They'll influence minds against that. So we should not fall prey to that. We have access to information. We live in 21st century. We live in a very pragmatic kind of times. So we need to look at things pragmatically, is what I would say.
Absolutely. I think coming back to your earlier question, Amita, sometime back, you're asking very, very poignant questions, I would say. Do you have a CEO who openly advocates, the gay environment or, the transgender and all that? I think, what I've heard, what I've read sometime back is, I think at the highest level that I can think of, not in India, by the way, but definitely at a world level, I think Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, Inc., he's the one who openly came out in support of this one. He very vocal about it, right? Of course, that happened not early, but definitely from 2014 onwards. I think 2018 is when he wanted something to Obama administration, and 2014 is when he openly talked about it. And then people have seen in him, especially from this community. I mean, when somebody at that level, talks about it openly advocates, I think people have definitely welcomed. And that's when I was thinking that in India also it should happen, but like you rightly said, it's still a long. I think the second one is that, yeah, I think the most important thing, like you rightly said, is I think it's a kind of self-delusional life that all of us live in, right? That no, we teach something else, we preach something else, but we exactly opposite, right? I mean, that's absolutely not called for. But yeah, I think, like you rightly said, it's largely the societal fence that all of us go through it, and therefore we immediately social ostracize people. I would say, with your permission, literally, people go through that thing. The moment you see somebody from a different community, and yeah, you start socially ostracizing them, and all the hardship that he or she is put through. But thank you so much, Amita. I think it's a phenomenally great time, and I'm sure all the audience, like all of us, I think would continue to contribute to this one in whatever little way we can, and most importantly, will be there as cheerleaders, I would say, in our small way, to come and help this community, because we have seen it, at least in our, I think I have seen one personally at a very personal level. One of our colleagues who joined my team sometime back in 2014, and he's from Assam, and he always had this thing and an orientation himself. But again, he was feeling aloof. But then, trust me, nobody in the company had anything to say about it. Only thing is, yes, if I can tell you honestly, it is not that people have excluded him. People are very happy talking about him. People are inviting him for parties. Especially he's from Assam, but then he's been there in Mumbai for a long time, and he's invited for weekend parties. I'm not from Mumbai, by the way, and then he was happy. But then still, there is something that I think he was not able to express. So therefore, he joined a theater, and that's where he started expressing himself in every possible way, including his physical attire and things like that. And then slowly, I think people have started recognizing his serious conviction to what he wants to be, and therefore people gave that space. And today, as we're talking, he's one of the, of course, he's working for a very good company and one of the staffing company, and he's also great theater. I think he has become a very one of the sought after actors in theater now. Just about it happened, very young guy, maybe just about early 30s, I would say. But I think there are instances, Amita, where people are welcoming and people are doing everything. But yes, I think what I do is that when I want to help such people, I don't do it immediately. I look for whether what somebody else is doing in both the ways, and like rightly said, neighbors. And then I always look for social sanction, I would say. I think that's what we keep on waiting for, the social sanction. But I think, like rightly said, we don't have to wait any longer, because one is that there is a legality, there is authenticity also, and then we should let people live the way they want it. But thank you so much, Amita. I think people like you should not only advocate but also stand up for all these rights, and then from our side, count on us for anything that we can.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I would maybe parting message would be question. That's how we rise above our biases. One
Right.
of the effective measure to rise above the bias is questioning. So all the reference point, Bollywood, so the media has been a major influencing reference point for all of us, and they have portrayed a very caricaturish kind of images when it comes to LGBTI plus individual, just to bring in that fun banter. Rise above that. Rise above that. Up until you don't rise above it, you will continue carrying the same distorted information which will reflect in your actions. So rise above it is what I would say.
Absolutely. I hope I know that message goes loud and clear to them, Amita. Thank you so much. I look
Thank you
forward to
so
hosting you
much for
once
the
again.
opportunity.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you so much,
Have a
Amita.
great evening.
And
Yeah.
thank you
Thank
so much.
you.
Thanks.